Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. My phone nearly died, so I'm plugged into the wall and kind of crouched on the floor here, and I'm bored, so I thought I'd do a quick comic review before I go run some errands. So this is yet another of the pile of $1 comics I picked up to get a feel for a bunch of series. So this is the new Avengers. It collects issues 1 through 3, and this looks like it was Cop Squad. This looks like it was the precursor to U.S. Avengers, because several of the characters in U.S. Avengers are in this, but about half of this cast aren't in U.S. Avengers. So, I mean, I'm interested because I've been enjoying U.S. Avengers. There's been a little SJW stuff, but generally kind of fun superhero fighting going on. It's a little hard to get invested in this, knowing that Marvel has the strategy of pumping out a bunch of titles, a bunch of number ones, and then rebooting it a little later. So I know that half these characters are going to disappear for the reboot, but this is all three of these were fun superhero books. I dug that, and I'm becoming conscious of a type of style that I'm having a hard time describing or categorizing. I tweeted out something I'm a little embarrassed about. I said, this makes me feel kind of stupid, but is there something like the equivalent of a Hispanic manga style? Like, is there a Spanish or Mexican comics industry I'm unaware of that makes a certain industry house style? Kind of like how there's a manga house style at Shonen Jump. There's there was a Marvel house style in the 80s and 90s. There was a DC house style. Because I keep noticing artists who have these sorts of traits. I don't know if I'm just happening to see the same artist again and again, and this is the first time it's registered on my brain, oh, this is a unique kind of style, or if I've seen multiple artists working this way. So this is kind of a mental note for me to start looking for this. Way back when I did my response to Zach on the pros and cons of committing to the bit, I used cartooning and realism as these two extremes where you could blend elements of both into a unique style, and you could benefit from both. But then what I added after that is that's such a hypersimplification. You could obviously have any number of unique styles pulling from all kinds of different traditions and schools of thought to build a unique style. So I'm always interested when I see someone drawing in a way where I think, oh, I haven't seen someone drawing quite that way before. That's a real appeal to me. Even though you could get trapped in a style and just only draw that way and stagnate, it's still fascinating to see someone have that quality to their work, because I think it shows a bit of freshness. It adds another reference point to your imagination when you are drawing. Here's a style you could not steal. Well, yeah, maybe some great artists steal styles, but you could at least be aware that it exists and that it's a way of drawing characters. That's not the manga style. That's not the John Buscema How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way style. So I call it semi-cartoony, semi-realistic, where everything is angular and everything is sharp. So, like point, 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 jagged edges, point, 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 point. So it's almost kind of like that anime hair, but it's not just the hair. It's also the costumes. It's also the scenery and the weapons. There's lots of geometry and lots of angularity to it. Let's get the artist's name so I can start to commit that to memory and know to look for it. Gerardo Sandoval. Okay, so Gerardo Sandoval has a distinct style that will sometimes kind of be in the cartoony dimension, will sometimes be in sort of the realistic dimension. It doesn't exactly look like manga. It doesn't exactly look like Marvel Age of Comics style, but it still feels like it has elements or qualities from those two streams of thought. So I dug it. Squirrel Girl's kind of cute. Sometimes there'll be some weaker faces. Sometimes there'll be some real triggering male gaze drawings of the boys and girls where they look beautiful and they look hyper athletic and amazing. The Greek standard of beauty, but even better than those filthy degenerate Greeks. What am I getting at? But all right, so some of the characters from U.S. Avengers are here in a supporting role. So Aiku is kind of trapped in this armor that seems to be taking over her mind, or she's not really present. The armor itself is talking, and Tony Ho is just doing her thing as an engineer. This Dr. Max Brashear. She's rocking the afro, and she's the theoretical physicist. And I don't see her in U.S. Avengers that much. So, again, half the cast vanishes. But as I read these three, I enjoyed it, and I'm interested. Let me think. So S.H.I.E.L.D. is suspicious of AIM because remember Roberto da Costa is the leader of AIM and he's trying to turn over a new leaf and make AIM a heroic group that supports S.H.I.E.L.D. and supports the Avengers. And as part of that, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s suspicious, so they send over Hawkeye to spy on them, but Duggan and Hawkeye, they both say, we are here to spy on you. It's super secret. So it's jokey and cutesy, but it doesn't annoy me. Because it's kind of clever. They could have done the bit where they make Hawkeye join the team and be really obvious to everyone that Hawkeye is reporting to S.H.I.E.L.D. So they're just kind of dispensing with the pretenses and just saying, Hawkeye was sent here to spy on you. We know you're not stupid. So that's kind of cutesy and fun, but it's also showing that they're intelligent and they know that Roberto da Costa is not an idiot, and that communicates to us that Roberto da Costa is not an idiot because they're not treating him like an idiot. He doesn't have to arble garble a lot of super science pseudo stuff for us to think he's intelligent. The way people treat other people can help communicate that as a subtext. So this is a pretty big team to keep track of, and this didn't do quite a good a job as the New Mutants comic I just read of giving me a feel for everyone's personality and identity, but I still got a vibe for it. So Hulkling's it gives me his powers, and he's seems like a fun-loving dude. Wiccan can manipulate reality if he can focus, and it seems to be kind of nervous and new to this. I haven't even gotten everybody down yet. White Tiger, I guess, is like some Wakandan superhero, like Black Panther. Man, I keep losing the Chi Kid's name. What's the Chi Kid's name? Little Mr. Chi Blaster, Super Genius. Where is he? There he is. Power Man. Okay, he's got Luke Cage's old superhero name. That's what confused me. And he can manipulate chi, and he's a super genius. Songbird can create shields out of sound. She can make sound solid. And then we all know Squirrel Girl. All right. So, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretty big team. They introduced me to some of their personalities and powers and, how they butt heads a bit, but wasn't as tight as New Mutants, where in one issue, New Mutants communicated everything to me about the characters' hang-ups, interrelationships, and dynamics, and gave me some action, all in one tightly packed issue. This is pretty good, though. I mean, the butt kicking starts off pretty quick. It's a fun, and it's a kind of a weird comic booky situation where people's heads are being replaced with crystals, and they hypothesize that someone is manipulating reality and kind of manipulate using like 4D chess or 5D chess to turn these people into crystal zombies. And there's an evil Reed Richards, and he's drawn in a really sinister and creepy fashion. He always looks intimidating and kind of fearsome. This whole scene of him doing some surgery was really creepy and really well done, but this is the dumbest 2-page spread I've ever seen. No communication that this is a 2-page spread. You have to read and then infer, okay, it must be read this way, because if I try to read it this way, some of the sentences don't make that much sense. So, Shadius Maximus, shame on you, 2-page spread. Go to your room. You're grounded. No TV for a week. And, there's some butt kicking. This is one of the faces I was really looking at when I was trying to nail down this style. So, in manga, when they have that profile, it's very simplified, very abstract. Everything is kind of simplified and changed to try to make the face beautiful and pleasing. This isn't quite a manga face because it's, highlighting the lips, the contours of the lips, the contours of the nose that manga artists generally what do? They simplify it down to the point of a few simple strokes. But it's also more angular than, sort of that John Romita Marvel comic book style where everything is sort of rounded and a little soft. This is it. There's hard corners to this, hard edges to it. And then here's where I was seeing, more of those pointed edges. So it's not just a ripped jacket. It's a ripped jacket with, point. It's and that helps arrows point you in directions. So every time when you have lots of arrows pointing in directions, it's got this bristly porcupine vibe. It's almost bristling with energy through where the energy that would normally be conveyed through motion lines is actually being conveyed through these points. So it's a really clever style that's allowing them to add some energy and movement to the drawing without some of the conventions of motion, blur, and motion lines. And they kick some butt. These two, they don't quite get along, but they're still teammates and partners. So it's not like girl power. We instantly love each other because we're both girls. Yet they're different personalities that allow them to butt heads. Also allow them to work together in a serious fighting situation. Well, and man, they're all cute. They're all cool. I like looking at them because they're actually pretty people. Here's another one of those kind of wonky, angular faces where they're really highlighting the contours of the face. And, he doesn't look particularly handsome here, but it looks intense and it looks unique. And he's establishing himself as kind of a supervillain turned good guy leader with kind of a cool vibe. He's really the same character that I just read in the New Mutants comic book, just a little bit older and more worldly wise. Beautiful, so beautiful. Thank you, artist. Thank you for drawing beautiful people in my escapist power fantasy book that's supposed to be about good guys beating up bad guys. I dig it. And then the Skrull want to restore their empire with the Kree, and this sort of H.P. Lovecraft inspired abomination comes and takes over. And, Tony Ho starts establishing her relation. Okay, this was really interesting, this convention. So they show the map of the island with, locations marked and then arrows pointing to this. And then you can read it, 1, 2, 3, and that motif continues. So you could theoretically read it wa-da-da-da, and then go back to this and read it wa-da-da-da, and then go back to this and read it wa-da-da-da. I mean, the easiest way to read it is one page at a time, as you normally would. This is a 2-page spread, though. And you continue reading the 2-page spread. Red, blue, yellow, blue, red. Color conventions to help us separate these 3 scenarios in our mind. Good. Very good. And even a good color harmony. The primary triad, yellow, blue, and red, they go together. And then purple, a dull purple blue to balance the yellow, blue, red. So we're not overpowered by just those 3 colors. And then shawoom, shawoom, shawoom. They hear the same sound effect, and boom, the aliens are here, and we're ready for some butt kicking and his super evil spaceship coming out of the mountain. I love that they're kind of fully committing to they're committing to the bit of a crazy over-the-top supervillain becoming a hero, and still having that style that supervillains have of giant rocket ships and crazy plans and an evil organization, but devoted to good. And even when they're kind of cutesy, like, I think you just became the king of space, the coolness of the moment help sell it. And it's not cutesy for the sake of trying to be tee-hee, we're so silly. It's cutesy in the sense, it's funny because he's underselling the magnificence or the grandeur of this moment. It's wry and it's an understated wit. Oh, I completely forgot. There's like this whole thing about cultural appropriation. And I thought about it, and I thought, is this kind of annoying? And it is kind of annoying to just see someone ragging about cultural appropriation in a comic, but it almost kind of makes sense in context that they would, hammer each other about this. So Power Man is roasting Wiccan for having Wiccan as his code name if he's not a practicing Wiccan. And this is one of those things where it feels like the author has a social justice point to make, and they're stuffing it into the comic book, because he makes a point that on the surface is a legitimate point, and made me stop and think, yeah, that is a good point. But then I think about it a little more, and there's a problem. So Power Man says, so Wiccan says, well, I've read about Wiccanism before choosing that as my code name. And Power Man says, I'm not talking about self-help guides or magic systems. I mean, on the most basic level, is this your faith? Wiccanism is a fake religion, guys. You've heard of fake news, fake religion, not winning at all. Okay, so Summa Triggerum. But the reason I resonated with that as a real point is, yeah, I don't want to wear someone's faith system as a comic book, because that seems a little arbitrary. It seems a little too cheesy to, but notice that it wasn't Christianity or it wasn't Orthodox Judaism that he's talking about. He isn't going to roast someone called the Golem for appropriating the term Golem from traditional Jewish folklore. He's roasting him for appropriating one of the progressive religions of Wiccanism because it's not high on the patriarchal privilege scale. It's one of the it's punching down. They're talking about Wiccanism presumably because they perceive Wiccanism as down on the what do you call it, the progressive stack. Within the progressive stack, Christianity is the privileged religion, and Judaism's that some on the left will recognize that Judaism I don't know, has a tough time on the world stage, but then the left's got this weird divide where some of them are really big for Israel and some of them are really big for Palestine. So I don't know. Politics is crazy, and politics is filled with divergent opinions and divergent groups all vying for control and wrecking one another. I'm getting on a tangent, but so cultural appropriation. That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is this resonates to me on a level where I can see how, yeah, he's making a legitimate point. I can see how I don't like it when I was just talking about Spirits of Vengeance and kind of the weird dualistic use of Christianity and in Spirits of Vengeance. And I kind of jokingly said, heresy, but that was kind of jokingly because I can appreciate how in a nonfiction setting, if people want to use a cross to throw off Dracula in their fictional comic book story, I might just kind of roll my eyes at that a bit as a Christian, but I don't really care because I understand it's a fictional story and you're using little storytelling tropes within your world. But the problem with this argument is let's try to apply it consistently to everybody. Okay, so we're not supposed to use people's faith as a superhero name or as a set of superpowers. Okay, well, let's apply the principle consistently. All right, Marvel Comics, no more holding up crosses or holy water in any stories about Dracula. No more angels and demons from medieval Christianity for your Spirits of Vengeance story. No more, all of Jack Kirby's New God stuff. No more pulling from the Jewish religion and the Christian religion to make these sort of religious, metaphysical representations, because that's not your religion. You shouldn't be using it. Cultural appropriation is a joke, and I think it's transparently obvious that the only cultures that the left cares about when they talk about cultural appropriation are cultures they perceive as victimized on the progressive stack, because no one ever says you shouldn't culturally appropriate the Norse religion for Thor. You shouldn't culturally appropriate the Greek religion for Hercules. It's only very particular subgroups valued by progressivism where they'll have these conversations about cultural appropriation. So that's why I got a little bit annoyed by the silliness of this moment, but it still even works in the context of the story, because then after Wiccan gets kidnapped by the aliens, Power Man's thinking, oh man, I picked the wrong day to call him out on his name. So it's almost for laughs, and it almost makes sense within the context of the story that a fun thing for the superheroes to roast each other about is cultural appropriation. And so I forgive it. I don't feel like the author's trying to lecture me or hit me over the head with a Salon.com article on cultural appropriation. This feels like it makes sense, and it's actually kind of fun within the context of the story that this might come up in our day and age when the superheroes are sitting around the dinner table. So I dig the drawing style. I'm really interested in this. Okay, so I asked the dumb question like, gee guys, is this a Hispanic thing? I know, I know that not all Hispanic artists draw this way, and that a Hispanic artist can draw any way they want, whether you're from Spain or whatever country you're from. What I was curious about is there some sort of cultural art tradition which might be informing this style, or is this just kind of a new comic style that's arisen where lots of artists just happen to be drawing this way from across the globe? I'll coin it like the sharp edge style, and as I read more and more comic books, I kind of want to try to identify where this came from and what kind of artists draw in this way, because I'm really interested in it. I dig it. So I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Another great $1 buy. I can't be too sad about a $1 buy, especially when I got this much enjoyment out of it. Love you guys. Catch you later.